Carl Sagan's successor as presentation of the Cosmos series, science superstar Neil deGrasse Tyson. The question is from Ivan DeVolder.
Okay, so in 1962, President Kennedy, to inspire his nation, said to go to the moon, "We choose to do the other things, not because they're easy, but because they're hard." Now, what would the panel like to see as humanity's next bold mission, and do they believe there's a leader who can help genuinely, what would you say, promote it to its success?
Neil.
Okay.
Humanity's next great mission.
In our parlance, it was known as a Sputnik moment, where you have a big, hairy, audacious goal that gets put down on the table, and it's out of everyone's reach, but you know with enough ambition and investment, you'll get there. President Obama, a few years ago, spoke of another kind of Sputnik moment, and I was very disappointed because he said, using the phrase Sputnik moment, we need to have high-speed rail and internet for everyone. And I said, no, we should have that anyway, right? If you're going to say it's a Sputnik moment, think of something that's never happened before. How about complete energy independence, for example? How about colonies on Mars? How about the search? How about mining an asteroid for natural resources? How about that? There's more natural resources on asteroids than have ever been mined in the history of the Earth. So I would say we need to turn space into our backyard. That would be, for me, a big, hairy, audacious goal. Another thing to this?
Yeah.
I should have said, I foresee the day where we have power over nature such that we can tap the energy expressed in Earth functioning as a planet and use it in the service of our needs and the needs of the survival of all life upon it. For example, a hurricane is building in the Atlantic, and it's ready to terrorize the coastline. We somehow dip in there, suck the cyclonic energy from the hurricane, drive the energy needs of the city that would have otherwise been leveled by that hurricane. That is a level of geoengineering that I would foresee to be in our future. Then we would know that we fully understand how Earth works.
This is a question for Neil. Russian billionaire Yuri Milner and Professor Stephen Hawking recently announced $100 million funding towards searching for signs of alien life. What do you think of the chances of this being successful, and do you think we will detect signs of intelligent life from another planet in our lifetime?
I think the chances are near zero, but not zero. And if the results of a near zero likelihood experiment were not interesting, I would say we're wasting our money. But if the likelihood is near zero, to discover intelligence other than that on Earth, elsewhere in the universe, that would be the most profound discovery in the history of our species. So the very low likelihood, high return investment, you need to think about it in those terms, and I say we go for it. By the way, it presumes, that we are intelligent. Right? Well, if we discover another species and they're vastly more intelligent than we are, would they even count us among their ranks of intelligence?
Neil, there's another question on this. I'm going to go to that so we can explore this idea. It's from John Lopez.
My question is for Neil. If we made contact with intelligent extraterrestrial life, what would you say to them?
Okay. So just to clarify, we have not successfully shared meaningful thoughts with any other species of life on Earth, life with whom we have DNA in common. So to presume that some other species of life where we'll have no genetic identity in common at all, that somehow we can have a conversation with them and have witty repartee, I think is it may be our own hubris to presume so. But that aside, if we meet another, I would want to compare notes, scientific notes and math notes. I would say, what have you discovered? What have we discovered? And I want to compare the books.
Because one of the really fascinating fundamental questions in mathematics is the mathematics that we've created, is it just the math? Is that the only mathematics and we've stumbled onto it? Or is the nature of the fact that humans have created it affected the type of mathematics we have? Is there one canonical math, or does the way we go about it determine what we find? And amongst people much more qualified than me to answer, it's still an open discussion. I personally believe there is one canonical mathematics, and a different species, or if humans had gone about it a different way, or if we were slightly wired, we'd still have...
So you believe there's a way of communicating through mathematics?
Yeah.
If
you're
there's
right.
any way anybody's going to communicate at all, it's not English and it's not French.
No.
All right, it's going to be the language of science and mathematics.
Without being facetious.
If it is anything at all,
It will be-
it's going to be that.
Ranjana wants to get in here.
Your comment about intelligent life reminded me of this really nice Albert Einstein quote, and he said two things are infinite. Two things in the universe are infinite. Two things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity. And I'm not sure about the universe. So I think, you know...
Hey, Neil, Stephen Hawking actually warned against shouting out into the cosmos because it's possible whatever beings you shout out to could be as dangerous as human beings. That's his fear, actually. He wants to receive messages, but not actually to broadcast them.
Yeah, so a couple of points on that. It's odd that there are people who want to send messages from Earth to aliens to tell them where we are and what our culture is like. But we're basically broadcasting our home address. But we would not give our home address to another human being in the street. Where we have identical DNA, right? So it's a little odd that we would be so eager to share our home address with aliens. But I can tell you that Stephen Hawking's caution derives not from not from knowledge of how aliens. He's suspecting he knows how aliens would behave towards us, based on actual knowledge of how humans behave toward one another.
That's right.
And anytime you've had an advanced civilization encounter a less advanced civilization, it has never boded well for the less advanced civilization in any example of this in the history of exploration. And so if we are contacted by aliens, it means they know how to get here. And his fear is that they will behave just like us.
Beth, I want to hear from...
By digits.
Yeah, no, exactly. There will be things like that. But so I agree that we are unlikely in our lifetimes to start talking to green men and women from another planet. But within my lifetime, and certainly within yours, we will detect life outside of Earth. We will detect single-cell organisms or really basic amino acid type processes.
I agree with that.
Quite
entirely.
possibly within our solar system on places like Titan or something like that. We won't be sending tweets to yellow things off on planet Zarkon in the near future.
Well, in fact, we believe that comets have been shedding life onto Earth since the beginning of time.
We will, in a comparatively short period of time, lock down the existence of life on a planet other than Earth.
It's not so much life from comets, but organic molecules.
Yeah.
And by the way, here's something that'll blow your mind. All right, if the aliens showed up and they were so powerfully intelligent that they could control the digits of pi, what would you say about that?
Yeah, bring it.
Hang on a sec. I've got one last question on the subject of aliens from Jorge Rosario.
Yeah. My question for Mr. Neil. Do you believe that it's possible that aliens are already living in our planet, but undercover?
It's an American conspiracy.
Yeah, it's completely. In the United States, perhaps here, we have something called Comic-Con, where people dress up like... And so I've wondered whether we've actually been visited by aliens, but they happen to land at Comic-Con. and then nobody noticed because everybody else was dressed up. So I think if we are visited by an advanced civilization, there will be no question or doubt about that moment. And for them to look like humans, again, is our own hubris to think that aliens from another planet would look like humans, where hardly any other life on Earth looks like humans, all right? Lobsters and oak trees and jellyfish. And we're gonna find an alien on another planet that has 2 legs, 2 arms, fingers, nose, eyes, shoulders, and walks around and speaks out of a hole in its mouth? No. You'll know if we're visiting.
Okay, let's change it up and let's change topics as well. This one.
So my question relates to the idea that some scientific theories are becoming political partisan objects. For example, the type of political parties that support and deny the idea that climate change is caused by humanity can be easily split in left and right camps throughout the world in many different countries, Australia and America in particular. We should all want bipartisan support for firm scientific theories so we can prevent detrimental effects affecting particularly our environment. This was successfully achieved in the past with the Montreal Protocol when we combated the idea of the ozone layer, the hole in the ozone layer growing. So my question to the panel is, how do scientists prevent scientific ideas becoming politically partisan?
Neil, we'll start with you.
Give me the hard ones. So one of the great tragedies of modern society is that you have politicians cherry-picking science in the interest of social, cultural, political, religious belief systems. And that's the beginning of the end of an informed democracy, if that's how you're actually going to govern. What we need to do is, in a world of free speech and a pluralistic world, I don't have a problem with people believe whatever they want. But if your belief is not based in objective truths, you should not be creating legislation based on it. And so maybe the problem is not beating the politicians over the head when they behave this way. That, to me, there's something missing in the educational system that leaves people with a gap in their understanding of what science is and how and why it works. If you come out with that understanding, then you're incapable of cherry-picking science. Imagine you gained weight last week and you want to repeal the law of gravity because you weigh more because of it. There's certain things we know intuitively not to do, but people need to recognize the value and role of science as a force operating in the 21st century.
When you bring politics into it, Neil, to what degree is it about protecting vested interests?
100%. It could be financial interest, religious interest. It's 100%. And so the fact that, because people think that they just have to believe it away and then it won't be true. And that's not how the universe works. So again, if you're trained to understand how and why science works, then the two opposing factions can have a genuine political discussion about how to react to human-induced climate change. Do you have carbon credits? Do you not? That's where the politics should happen, not on the established emergent truth of the scientific research.
Astrophysicist, but you obviously trust climate science. You trust the modelling?
It's not so much a trust, there are experts who perform these calculations and the models, and I am not that's not my expertise, but I know what training they go through, and I know what gets invoked when they publish a research paper, and what we need to recognize here is not whether one result gives where one experiment or model gives any particular answer. You want to see whether there's an emergent, recurring theme among what an ensemble of researchers are putting forth. And when there is, that's the indication that you're onto something. And so I know how, when, and where to recognize when that's real. And you do so when there's the emergent truth. Here's a problem. The press will see and this happens in medicine all the time. I'm sorry, I don't mean to just like recoil in here. I'm sorry, but I just got excited to remember. It's like all the time in medicine. One person publishes one research result, and then the press runs to that result and says, oh, here's a new thing, now cholesterol's good for you, all right? Or now cholesterol's bad for you. They're pivoting that on the one research paper in the New England Journal of Medicine, and they're presuming that that is the new truth. That is not the new truth.
In fact, a third of all drugs are approved on the basis of a single pivotal trial.
And so I'm saying there's got to be the emergent truth where you say, here is the new reality, is when many more than one experiment give you the same result. And so that's how and anyone should be approaching the moving frontier of science.
We're going to...
My question is for Neil and Adam. To prevent an artificial intelligence from becoming dangerous to us, what measures do you think need to be taken, and how should we best implement them?
Neil.
I don't fear. The question assumes that that's going to happen. Now, maybe we feel that way because every movie that shows artificial intelligence has that happen, all right? So, but I'm fearless about this. As our computing power gets better, as our machines get better, yeah, we will program machines to do stuff we need them to do. By the way, we've been doing that forever. I mean, ever since we've had machines and ever since we've had computers.
But we've never had offensive, autonomous killing robots before.
Yes,
Killer
we do.
robots.
We programmed it. Yes.
Not autonomous ones.
Well,
They make autonomous
they're called
targeting.
guided missiles.
Yeah.
We have guided missiles that can find their target and destroy their target. We don't call them artificial intelligence, but that's exactly what they are. We use our brain to put our motives into the chip that is in a missile to kill people and break stuff, okay? Because that's what the military does. We are already doing that, but in a very controlled way. That will just continue. The computers beat us at chess. Computers beat us at Jeopardy, okay? That wasn't the end of the world when that happened. You didn't have people committing suicide when that day arose.
I was pretty sad when Kasparov got beaten by Deepa Blue, Noel, I'll be honest with you.
Okay, but fine, okay.
That very personally.
But so the Hubble telescope is a robot. The machines that build your automobiles are robots. All right? This idea that we're going to create a humanoid that is going to... No, that's...
But Neil, you tend to trust...
You're doing a very good impersonation of
I
We've lost Neil. We've lost Neil. Neil's gone rogue.
Okay, Robbie. Now, look, 1,000 of the world's leading AI researchers recently, as you probably know, put together an open letter where they said this must be stopped. We can't allow this movement to the technology of autonomous killing machines. And they for example, cite what's likely to happen in the future. For example, swarms of insect-sized bombs, drones that can buzz up beside someone and blow up beside their head. I mean, this is the future in a way.
Okay, so in the late 1900s, is that a sentence? Okay. There was a. I remember reading an op-ed, and it may have been Scientific American, but one of the science journals of the day, that was concerned about the recent invention of the aeroplane, because what it means is the aeroplane can now fly in the air across the borders of sovereign nations and drop nitroglycerin canisters on unsuspecting people. And so planes were a bad thing, that we should not have airplanes. Well, of course, we do drop bombs across the borders of sovereign nations, but airplanes also do very good things. And so is the problem the technology, or is the problem the diabolical politic that uses the technology for nefarious power ploy, hegemonistic gains? And so the issue here is you don't stop the technology, you monitor our conduct as human beings in the face of it.
Adam, killer robots.
First of all, 2 words, Will Smith. As long as we've got Will Smith, we're cool. He can deal with that. In terms of the impact that sort of intelligence and robotics, etc., could have on humanity, I'd be far more concerned about the swathes of jobs, the changes to economic structures and impacts. They're talking in the United States, tens of millions of people whose jobs simply won't exist.
Yeah, but you sound like the people from the Industrial Revolution, worried that this is what defined the Luddite movement, all right? So that all of a sudden there'll be no jobs for anybody because robots took up all the jobs. Well, we now need jobs of people to fix the robots.
I don't think you're going to have enough robot repair jobs to replace.
That's proxy for...
but a report by PwC in Australia recently suggested 44% of all jobs currently held are in industries that will face significant digital disruption over the next 20 years.
Yes, but other things that rise.
Yes.
That's luddistic. No, but at the time... Who would have thought? I used to do this. There used to be something called a phone book and the yellow pages. And you'd look through it and you see what was advertised in them. And one of the great pastimes is, decade by decade, look at what is there in one decade and it's completely missing in the next. Like buggy whips, no longer there, okay? Now we have computer salespeople are in the phone, well, the modern version of a phone book that did not exist before. You cannot predict what jobs we will need and don't currently exist just by saying we're going to lose jobs and then that's it. No, society moves forward. That's your weakest argument today.
Just because, by definition, there will be new jobs. Just because in the past technological changes have, it seems, always created sufficient jobs to replace them, doesn't mean that automatically happens. The sort of steps that you're talking about in robotics, the sort of steps that you're talking about where an intelligent machine can do the job of one or dozens of people who used to work in call centres, etc., and suggesting that people who miss out on those jobs will just go and retrain as robotic repairmen, with the greatest respect, I don't think it's the strongest argument you've presented tonight either.
Okay, we're going to change topics just slightly. All right. I'd love to keep going with that one. But the next, and there's time for one last question. It comes from Susan Peaty.
Panel, as a primary school teacher, I see the influence that the work that David Attenborough, Stephen Hawking and yourself, Neil, have had on the young minds in my classroom. You have brought the extraordinary of the world and the universe to a level of understanding that 11 and 12-year-olds relish. But it also demands of them to ask the two most important questions, why and why not. In their minds, they're going to take the first steps on Mars and they're going to colonise the moon. Where do you think we will be in the next 100 years?
Neil.
Wow, great final question, that is. I would say we should not confuse science literacy with knowledge of science as distinct from passion for science. You can be passionate about science and not really know much about it. You can dream about what kinds of things science and technology can bring to your civilization without even being the professional scientist or the technologist. So when I look at elementary school children and I see them excited about programming that is actually fundamentally conceived for adults, but children can consume that product. I see their eyes open and I see them dream in the way that I know I dreamed when I was a child, where anything was possible. And the problems that society faced did not really have political solutions, they had scientific solutions and technological solutions. And in this, the 21st century, without creative investments in science and technology, we're not going to have a 21st century. And that next generation are the ones that are going to lead it. But keep in mind that they cannot lead it with a scientifically illiterate adulthood that is in charge of either providing or removing opportunity that they would enjoy. So that's why I will never only focus on children, because it's the adults who are in charge and wield resources. And so both of those pieces of that puzzle have to be in place, without which there is no future for this civilization.
And in 100 years? Are you optimistic?
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about tapping into cyclones. Engineering cyclones. I mean, someone's going to have to build that thing.
Yeah, somebody's got to build it. Somebody's going to be the first to walk on Mars. By the way, the idea, you can say, well, how does that put food on your plate? If you go to Mars, you're breaching frontiers of astrophysics, of geophysics, of biology, the sustaining of human life. You're going to be looking for life while you're there. And those are goals. Those are forces that operate on the ambitions of a nation. You can turn a sleepy country into an innovation nation when you realize that a nation or the world are engaged in these frontier activities. And you come up in the school system, you see those headlines drawn weekly about what new thing got discovered for the astronauts who are on some other location, and you say, I want to be a part of that great adventure. And then you don't need special programs to get people interested in science, because the very news headlines are the ones doing that for you. So in 100 years, like I said, all wars over limited resources are over, because we have access to the unlimited resources of our backyard, and that new backyard is our solar system.
Well. Okay, well, naturally enough, we've been inundated tonight with big questions about science, maths and medicine, but first, the ongoing controversy over racism and the constant booing of AFL footballer Adam Goodes. And our first question comes from Michael Doyle.
Thanks, Tony. I've been a West Coast Eagles supporter since I can remember. I think I was about 10 when I first watched on TV in Country WA, West Coast Eagles run onto the field. I live in Sydney now, and it's sweet when we beat the Swans, but I was devastated by the behaviour towards Adam Goodes, and I say that both as an Aboriginal and as a proud Australian. This behaviour has been going on for quite some time, and people carrying on in this way know that it's being characterised as racist. My question to the panel is, what impact is this having upon us as a nation?
I'm going to start, oddly enough, with Neil Tyson here. Let's start with an
drag me
outsider's
into your racist
perspective.
thing?
Indeed.
I got enough racist problems in the United States, you know?
What do you make of the ones here?
I can try to offer a cosmic perspective on it, if I may.
Might be the best way of looking at it.
All right, so I've thought about it. Upon landing, they handed me the Daily Telegraph, is that? And it's front page, back page, mid-page stories on it. And I just started reading it, and I was...
I'm sorry for you.
Yeah, and I was just... and all I could think of, well, I thought about 9 things, and if you allow me. And what we do in math is you separate the variables. And what's happening is all the variables are jumbled together and people are reacting. But if you separate the variables, it can be revealing. For example, he's celebrating his score at the end of a game, correct? I mean, during the game. And he does it in a way that's different from everyone else, gesturally. And to me, that's a form of a freedom of expression, a freedom of speech. If you don't like that, at some point you have to confess to yourself you're not a fan of freedom of speech. And so if you're going to do that, that's a different country from what I understand Australia claims to be. That's A. B, it was in another occasion, in response to this, a 13-year-old girl engages him with the comment. Well, first, the fact that she says that he reminds her of an ape or something. Now, okay, did she come up with that on her own? Or was it her friends? Likely it was her parents. If you're 13, you just don't say that unless you came from an environment where that's been said before. That's really weird. That's, in the 21st century, for people to be behaving that way, I'm highly disappointed, if I can say. Now, so, then she calls him an ape, and then I thought, why did she call him an ape? Because you know what she's done? She's selectively chosen things about apes that she thinks apply to him, and not other things that would apply to people who are white. For example, apes have hair all over their bodies. You have never seen a black person with hair all over their bodies. Black people are some of the least hairiest people in this world. And who are the hairiest? It's white people. They're the hairiest. With hair on the back, out of the neck. And so if you focused on hair, then you could call white people monkeys, right? It's all racist
Can
conduct.
I just say quickly, as the only bald person on this panel, I am finding this conversation very hairless all of a sudden. I just want you to know that now.
I don't want to hog the thing, but I just got to get this. You asked me. I'm just trying to get it off my chest.
I did. I wanted a cosmic perspective.
Okay, so then he's paid millions of dollars. He's a professional athlete. Then I thought about him and I said, someone is commenting from the audience. Get over it, okay? If Jackie Robinson, because we've been through this in the United States, Jackie Robinson, breakthrough into Major League Baseball.
That was 1947. Now.
Yes, it was 70 years ago, 80 years or whatever. And so people are booing him, and he rose above it. And what you can do is, rather than argue with the person booing at you, the next press conference you can say, this happens all the time, and I'm disappointed, and I expected more, but I'm professional, and I'll eat it.
Let me go back to Michael, who asked the question. Michael, what do you think about that last part of that, the suggestion that perhaps he should rise above it?
I think he has a tremendous opportunity to educate, particularly young people, around racism, and that's exactly what he attempted to do. and I don't understand why that attempt to educate somebody about what's harmful around racism is being so misrepresented in the Australian media at the moment.
I'm just going to...
So yes, but
You
I have
touched the
another
presenter.
question, okay? Why does anyone think or reference him as a black footballer? He's a footballer, okay? Why, where does... When, why, and where does skin color matter in that sport? Okay? So when I think of people talking about race, it's being invoked here in Australia, as far as I can tell, as a means to figure out who belongs and who does not. Yet, I, as an astrophysicist, when I think about race, I think about it as something that unifies us all. I think about it as the human race.
Thank you very much. Adam, I'm going to go to you as a sports fan. I'll hear from the other panellists.
The problem was, I mean, the gentleman who got evicted from the West Coast game, and I use the word gentleman advisedly, for shouting, "Get back to the zoo." When he was evicted, said that was political correctness gone mad. This is just a bit of harmless banter. The former representative soccer goalkeeper who tweeted that Adam Good should be deported for his opinions, which were totally not his opinions. In that hypothetical world, to where do you deport an Indigenous Australian? You incalculable moron. I can't imagine what it's like to walk around with a head as rattlingly hollow as that guy, right? And the thing is, I don't believe every person who was booing was doing it racially motivated. But a percentage of people were. And it's got to the point now where if you choose to keep booing, you are hitching your wagon to the guy who is booing because he's saying, "Get back to the zoo." And that's where it just has to stop. Even if you feel you have some implied right in the Constitution of freedom of speech where you can boo the guy, if he is interpreting it as racial vilification, that's where you just, as a decent human being, stop doing it.
So I don't know whether the audience knows, but Neil has been voted as the sexiest astrophysicist in the world.
Neil, did it all start with a times table?
That was 15 years ago, right? and 30 pounds ago, right?
But I'm thinking not